leave the intro, but everything else
Yeah,
needs to
right,
go.
right. Just cut my voice out entirely. You guys can have a conversation amongst yourselves.
We do that too often. We need guests. Rhyme or free, it doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry. Good day and welcome to My Bad Poetry, a podcast where we take a deep dive into our poems from youth, yesteryear, or even yesterday, always asking the question, why in the world did I write this? I'm Aaron.
And I'm Dave.
And today we have with us a friend of Robert Allen, making him 1 degree away from 4 of our previous guests, and used to be a member of the Thursday Night Writing Club. A poet from Vancouver who has a large tree across the street from his old house. What else would you all need to know about? William Erickson, welcome to My Bad Poetry.
Hey, thank you for having me in my tree.
I was on your site yesterday and I was reading your about page and I was like, well, that works.
Yeah.
Sure. For as long as the tree is over there, it'll probably remain in the bio.
Yeah. What will happen if the tree has to be cut down or is blown down?
I have to return to the drawing board, or maybe it'll be like a large stump. I don't know.
That works.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I feel like that could work.
Yeah.
So is there anything in this very short intro that we might have missed that you want to share with our dear listeners?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe like a bit of shameless self-promotion. I guess it's not self-promotion, but I run a little journal called Not My Style, which is interesting. It's maybe a few degrees removed from the premise of this podcast, and the stuff that we look for is like stuff that doesn't fit folks' typical aesthetic mode, right? So like the stuff that you're like, I don't know what the hell to do with this poem or with this like story, like this doesn't fit anything that I'm doing. Like that's the kind of stuff that we want. And we've got one issue out, and I'm actually kind of clunkily and haphazardly dropping the second issue later on today.
Oh wow.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, right. It was supposed to be like July 1st, and now it's August 9th, so right on time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But the URL for that is not my dot style, and we read submissions year round and slowly. So if anyone wants to send stuff in or just go check it out, there should be a whole bunch of new work up today and a whole bunch of work that's been up for a while also still up today. So yeah, it's a pretty fun little project.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. It's been fun. Like I'm really putting my faith in people to actually like honor the premise because I only know like a small handful of people, and I only know an even smaller handful of people's styles. So
Sure.
you could just send in whatever you want and be like, this is not my jam, and I won't know. So honor system, but yeah, it's been fun and interesting for sure.
That's awesome. Do you have any like recent stuff that you want to plug or?
I had a book, full-length collection, come out in May of this year through a little press in Tennessee called April Gloaming, and kind of just on the tail end of doing all the like promotion, and I have a couple readings coming up still from that. But yeah, just kind of have stuff out here and there. I think I have something coming out in the next issue of Denver Quarterly.
Oh, cool.
Really excited about that. That's like one of my dream magazines. So that was like
Nice.
a big bonus this year. But yeah, just really kind of like trying to take it easy after doing like the big book promotion jam,
Sure.
which is a slog.
You've forgotten to give us the name of your book.
Oh God. Of course I did. Of course. It's called You Don't Have to Believe in the World.
You Don't Have to Believe in the World. Okay. And that's through April Glumhouse?
April Gloaming Publishing.
Gloaming. Okay.
Yeah. They're just
that.
small press in Tennessee.
Nice. What would you say kind of the style of that book is?
Oh, I don't want to be too reductive, but I tend to write in like a sort of surrealist mode and lean into like simplicity of language a lot. It's the poems in this book, I mean, publishing happens so slowly. So like a lot of these poems are like, 5 to 6 years old at this point, and I'm so far removed from the mode that I was writing in then. But book itself has like a surrealist bent, like most of what I write. I feel like it's about all of my dead and all of my lost, and whether that's like selves lost or family lost or friends or whatever. But yeah, it's a strange book. There's a lot of hummingbirds
Okay,
Huh.
yeah.
and there's a lot of hummingbirds,
I
just a lot.
I
Fair.
just recently I learned that hummingbirds within some traditions is considered like a messenger of the dead, from the dead, or like
Oh.
Right,
yeah,
right, yeah. And they're also like very social animals.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just like come and hang out with you for the sake of hanging out for a little bit,
sure.
which is
Huh.
so weird, especially in that context of them being, having like a ghost-like presence.
Mm.
That's okay. Yeah.
But I learned a trick from a writer friend of mine. Basically, all of the animals in this book are hummingbirds. Like there isn't any other animal really, but there used to be other animals. And when I was putting together the manuscript, it seemed like, it was like all like it was like a zoo. It was like all over the place.
Sure.
And a friend of mine was like, well, with names and with characters and animals, if I'm finding that in like a series of work, I'll just make all the animals the same animal. And like
Hmm.
Ah.
maybe I'll edit it to make sense, but maybe I won't. And I'll just change it from, like an ox to a hummingbird. And so I went through the whole thing and changed everything to hummingbirds and was like, oh yeah, okay, that seems coherent. I don't know. In the moment it does.
That's
Maybe it
cool.
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't anymore. But yeah, so like everything turned into hummingbird, which made it interesting in some senses.
I love that. Well, enough
Yeah.
about your good poetry. We brought you here to talk about bad poetry. So, to bring us into the realm of bad poetry, Dave, what have you brought for us with your hastily written poem of the week?
Yes. This is a poem I am calling The Artist's Journey. Shall I wax poetic over the moon? Should I describe in detail my favorite spoon? Can I expound on the beauties of video games? Will I explore that which I cannot name? Dive into death and exuberant love? Descend into nature of below and above? Nah, I'll probably just write some limericks or some crap.
Ah,
Yep.
Dave, sometimes I think you rely a little too much on your throwaway line at the end.
I think I am just creating my own form of poetry. A form that I am calling crap.
I was gonna say the harsh turn.
The harsh turn. That's pretty good.
It was so beautiful, and
Yeah, sure.
I wanted your sarcasm to at least rhyme at the end,
Mm-mm.
and not even that happened.
Nope.
Well,
I don't know. I think that no matter what happens in that poem, just the word exuberance saves the whole thing.
well, there
Right?
you go.
Yeah,
Now,
I
it's
kind
just
of
like,
nailed it.
right. It's perfect. You could submit it to me today and I will accept it gladly.
I can submit it and you can put it in like a section of your journal of, it's not my style. It's really no one's style because it's just trash. It's a bad poem.
but in some ways, Dave, it is your style. I
It
mean,
is my style.
you write these where you take that quick turn at the end, and you just everything comes crashing down.
Yep. I think that's called life.
Ah, there you go. So, Will, you have brought for us three of your
Hmm.
bad poems. What are you feeling to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, so I pulled these out of like an old chapbook manuscript that I submitted like twice and then stopped.
Oh, okay.
And it's like this is like many years old now.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably talking like 2010s in that era.
Okay.
So I don't really know. They don't feel like my poems anymore, so I don't really care what order we read them in, but I pulled them out. I pulled them out in order of, like where they sat inside the manuscript. So
Got
Sure.
it.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
I'm happy
let's.
to just read them in order. Okay. All right, cool. We used to take knife hits. There's something about the way we teeter between sawdust and eulogy that smacks of gravitational lensing, as if by thrill we mean carbon copy, as if the word for last in any language specifies the listener. How on the curve could mean I love you if when evening's here we tempt the halo on a planet, not to signify the one spot burning where the flame can't put its hands.
Have you
That
ever
was
been
my
on a
reaction.
tilt-a-whirl?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I feel like I just stepped off a tilt-a-whirl. I don't quite know where I'm looking.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's all. It's like it's all one sentence.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about the way. Okay. Okay. Wow. So you have very little for us to kind of ground ourselves here? Any insight as far as context or what you might be talking about?
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm talking about really at all. Although, like, right kind of in the middle there, there's a phrase that says, as if the word for last in any language specifies the listener. I
Yeah.
feel like that is like that is supposed to mean something really profound, but I can't get at what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm kind of like I'm getting a little bit ahead and looking at the ends of these other poems. And there was a time when I was reading a lot of Julie Doxey. Have you all heard of Julie Doxey?
I
No.
don't think so.
She's got a couple books on Black Ocean and I think a book or two from Octopus Books. Anyway, she's got like a really interesting way with rhythm and
Hmm.
phrasing. And I feel like as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is like a bad Julie Doxey copy.
Ah.
And I'm seeing that also in these other poems, like particularly the endings, the way that they're so sing-songy and like
Hmm.
Julie Doxey's poems are like nice, good rhythms and not sing-songy, but like I feel like that's what I'm trying to do here. But I don't know what
Okay.
any of it means, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, but I'm going to go off of the title here. We used to take knife hits, and the first thing I'm thinking of is that game that kids try and play when they think that they're being really dangerous, where you like take a pencil and you go between the fingers, and you can do that with a knife, obviously. But I'm thinking like that's a thrill. That's actually a pretty common or carbon copy activity that kids go through. Like, look how fast I could go without stabbing my fingers.
Hmm.
That's all I got. That's
And
the
it's the
So
image.
last thing you do in class because it's graded on a curve, and we love it.
Yeah.
yeah, so I do have to say that like even now, my practice of titling is kind of extremely arbitrary.
Okay.
So
Fair.
so I don't know. I mean, I don't know if in reality the title has anything to do with any of the stuff that follows it. However, maybe this is like a regional thing, or maybe it's just something, maybe it's generational. I don't know. But knife hits are like when you take two like butter knives and you heat them up on the stovetop, and then you put like we used to do it with weed, but I guess you could do it with any smokable drug, and then you put the weed on there, and then you sandwich the other like you sandwich it between the two like red hot knives, and then it's like smoke comes up, and that's what you do.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
Now I lived under a rock. I mean, like
Okay.
Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, you're nodding like you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes.
so it's not a regional thing. It's just
Okay.
me being
I
oblivious
know
Yeah.
to
that
the
I didn't
world.
make this up. I know
Okay.
that I did
Right.
not make up this technique. I'm not
Wow.
that problematic.
So so if we take the title by that original meaning, maybe you're just like high.
Just high.
Yeah, just high.
But like, but like, you guys, we're like right between sawdust and eulogy, though.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, did you think about that?
That's like the sweet spot, right? Like you get too high and it's eulogy, and you're like you're not high enough and it's sawdust.
Okay.
There you go. You're
I think
writing
we
that.
figured it out. I think
We
we figured
I,
it out.
yeah.
nailed it.
You even consider your hands. I mean, like that's a classic trope of being like, oh, look at my hands.
Right.
Wow.
Totally. Or like right at the end there too. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole on the curve could mean I love you.
Yeah.
I feel like the italicized words are supposed to draw us in and like evoke something.
Yeah, like I don't know what it means 10 years ago for me, or however long ago these were made, but currently, like I don't like to use quotation marks in poems. So if I
Okay.
have somebody saying something, I'll put it in italics instead. And I maybe that was what I was doing, but also like I don't know who was saying what or would have been saying that stuff. I don't know.
Right.
It seems like a weird move in this poem for
Yeah.
sure.
That does, I mean, it does seem like quotations when you say that because it's you're like translating as if by thrill we mean carbon copy. So as if by
Mhm.
whoever said thrill they actually meant carbon copy. As if whoever said on the curve they actually meant I love you. And then
Right on.
again, this last is supposed to specify the listener.
Yeah. That's like the only line in this whole poem that I'm like, oh, that's a dope line. I think I'm gonna steal that out and try and shoehorn it into some other probably bad poem that I'm writing currently.
Well, we've heard from other guests that one of the best techniques that they do, and I wish I could attribute it to the right person, but
I don't remember.
they take a line from a hated poem and just like run that as their first line for something else, and or like they as a kind of a jumping off point.
That's interesting. So you get your good foot in the door right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You write a bunch of crap and you just for the sake of writing. And then when you're reading it back and there's that one spark that you're like, "Ah, that's a good line." You take
Yeah.
that out, you leave everything else behind and you go with it. But
Hmm.
huh. Yeah, you could do a lot exploring what you possibly meant by that.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like there's a whole show dedicated to that.
You could also explore gravitational lensing.
Ooh, yeah.
Dude, I'm not even like really sure what gravitational lensing is.
I was hoping you could explain.
I mean, I think it has something to do with like if it's like well obviously it's like an astronomical term, right?
No.
Right?
I
Yeah.
think, but I think it has something to do with like how you can like see certain like strange artifacts and stuff around stars and things with a lot of gravity because it warps the field of vision. It's something I might be making that up.
I think you're right that it has something to do with the warping of space-time and how we perceive the warping of space-time visually. But
That feels right.
again, I when I first heard the phrase used here, all I could think was I thought I was being pretentious in my poem.
Let's not forget how high I probably am at the moment that I'm writing it.
Because
Fair, very
Of course,
fair.
I'm seeing gravitational lensing,
you're teetering between sawdust and eulogy, so
right?
you're just seeing all sorts of time and space continuum. Just
Oh, okay.
wow. Okay. Well, yes, with the context of what knife hits actually is. That explains the poem. I know you said that the titles typically come last, or you're a little arbitrary about the titles, but I think that sheds a whole new light on this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm wondering if we go to the next one.
yeah, totally. This has a bleeding title too. I like that. So, or maybe the title is like like an address, like a salutation. I don't know. Hello, best wishes. I'm reminded of the lakeside surgery audience feeding their pockets our needles and pins. Which of your oars has folded the water? The one in your hands, or the one that you spoon through the oven glass, hoping for sun there? There's a quote that I'm thinking of, and I think it's Robert Lowell, maybe. Maybe it's like Apollinaire. I don't know. No, it wouldn't be Apollinaire, but it's like surrealism can have a tendency to devolve into clinical meaninglessness or something like that.
Okay, okay,
And that's kind of what I'm thinking of.
yeah, you're evoking. definitely the folding water with the oars and the hand or with the spoon trying to reach into the oven. There's some cool stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I like how you put it of that quote of surrealist and clinical meaninglessness.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's getting there. Like it almost feels like an automatic writing exercise, almost.
Sure. I'm getting a strong image from this one. Being from Minnesota, we have the Boundary Waters up north, and it's just there's no motorized boats allowed, and so there are some mornings where you will wake up and you will push your canoe off from a landing that is just filled with pine needles, and the water is so still, and it feels like you are pushing an oar through glass, and like I I'm getting an image of that from this poem. I don't know if that's at all what you're trying to evoke, but I
I'm
kind of
seeing
like the beauty of that.
so the oven
the
glass is the lake surface.
That's what I'm seeing.
yeah,
Ah, that makes sense. That makes
I'm
sense.
seeing kind of a sort of similar thing, but also I'm seeing like molten glass maybe, where
Mm,
it's like sort of red hot and goopy.
yeah.
Ah.
But I'm also like the whole first stanza, I'm like in like a retirement village and there's like lounge chairs next to like a pool or something and a guy in like a
Okay.
tracksuit and then somebody has like syringes on like a little platter like they're daiquiris or something. I don't know. That's what I'm pulling from that though immediately.
Yeah, the needles and pins definitely evoked syringes.
Yeah.
And um,
Mm.
what do you think surgery audience?
Oh, for sure. I like right now it's like you know how they used to like have students observe surgeries? That's what
Oh
I'm
yeah, and
thinking.
like the
In the room
They're
amphitheater type.
above.
hmm
Yeah. Okay.
that's what I'm thinking. But apparently they're doing it at a lake, which is I guess nice.
Yeah.
Well, are they watching? Are they watching the surgery precision of the rope of the oar cutting through the water?
Oh,
Ah.
that feels
So
like
then
the
the
more
ore is like
astute reading.
yeah, it's like a massive scalpel just digging into skin.
What? No.
Hmm? What? No?
No, it's the spoon in the oven glass, but also surgery in the water. You're looking for sun, right? I mean, I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the best wishes of it all. In the midst of this traversing over water, you're hoping for good news or for
Mm.
Yeah, well, and also like maybe so I live on a coast kind of, and I guess this is applicable if you live on the East Coast too, but in a sense, like the sun either rises from or sets into the ocean, kind of. So maybe there's like some kind of ocean sun birth metaphor that could be pulled out of
ah.
this. I don't know.
Hmm.
I have a question as to whether this is a typo as you were re-recording this in our document or not. But feeding their pockets our needles and pins, it could it be feeding their pockets on needles and pins? What do you,
Yeah,
I'm
it
struggling
could
with
be.
that line. I don't know what the
Huh.
hour is doing.
See, that's where I was getting the pine tree of the Boundary Waters, pins and needles,
Oh,
but I don't think that's what it is at all.
feeding their pocket.
I mean, I think on in retrospect works better. So I will claim that
Hmm.
typo and say that
Okay.
yes, I
Sure.
intended that,
uh,
but I don't know. I don't
yeah.
think it's a typo. I think that
No.
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Feeding their pockets are needles and pins. Huh.
Huh.
Yeah, that line is beyond me currently.
Well, like it's kind of a flip on the phrase being on pins and needles, and maybe that's why I'm thinking of on instead. But like,
Hmm.
yeah.
It sort of makes me think of, I don't know, maybe it's like the intrusion of pockets and then also like laying or lounging lakeside. it kind of makes me think of like when you fall asleep on your arm and then it starts to come back to life. There's like the tingly feeling.
Yeah.
It's evoking some of that for me. And then there's hands again.
Yeah.
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 I'm very hand obsessed in these poems.
You're very handsy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were writing this for an advertising campaign for a needle exchange program.
Ah.
That would be
Yeah.
cool.
There you
Yeah?
go.
I'm seeing people taking needles from a surgery, from a doctor's office, and then still using it to heat up a spoon through the oven glass looking for the sun? I don't know.
This is
Well,
beginning to sound also like a strange drug project.
yeah, it does.
Oh,
That's something that when I encounter surrealist art, that's something that I struggle with sometimes. And you'd say that your current poetry is more of surrealism. So I'm curious, like, I feel like there's a fine line between surrealism and drug induced just nonsense. And I'm wondering, is like, what do you see as and maybe surrealism, the whole point is not defining the thing, but what do you see when you're, or gosh, how do I want to phrase this?
You're gonna have to find an end to this
I'm gonna
sentence
have
at
to,
some point,
yeah,
Aaron.
no, this is just like the first poem. It's just rambly nonsense.
You're a jerk.
Like, what do you get out of surrealism? I guess I'm asking very honestly. I love that
Yeah,
that's your art, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, in a sense, like when I'm consuming it rather than making it, maybe it can become like a container kind of for my own context. And I know that sounds like, utter subjectivity, but also like antithetical to what I was thinking when writing these poems, perhaps. I do believe that like surrealism has to exist against a backboard of something real, or the real, and maybe that's like the ultimate folly of all these poems is that there's no reality really anywhere in these things. But I think what surrealism can do is evoke an emotional state without pinning the subject of the emotional state to the wall too much.
okay.
You know, like when I read really good surrealist stuff, like the best James Tate or like really really good John Ashbery or something like that, I'm confused about why I feel a certain way, but I definitely feel a certain way.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
And sometimes that way is like sad. Or I feel like surrealism has a tendency to be like melancholy. So maybe that's like the really driving emotion, but it still feels like it's evoking something, and the thing that it's evoking is super real. And I'm kind of confused about it, and I kind of like to be confused about it.
No, I love that explanation actually. And I think that explains, at least for me, why these two poems aren't working in the way that really good surrealist poems do, in that the first emotion or the first feeling that comes out of these two is confusion. And where you're saying with other works, it's you feel an emotion and the confusion comes maybe after, is why do I feel that way? Versus the first thing out of these poems is, well, that's just confusing. And
Yeah,
there's nothing to examine beyond that.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Like surrealism works like a fundamental concept of the mechanism of it is like juxtaposition. Like these two things shouldn't necessarily sit next to each other and make sense, but they do. And in a really general sense, backing out to like 40,000 feet, the like surrealism in general has to sit against the real world and it has to make sense. And I mean, you can like all of these words evoke real, like surgery is a real thing, but like a lakeside surgery audience is not, like it's hard to pull in any sense of an actual known reality into these poems, especially that first one, because there's just not even an image you can grab onto.
Right, right. It's like you could explore a lakeside surgery audience if you took more time crafting that image and putting
Yeah.
like evoking both the lakeside and the surgery audience of old, and maybe the sawdust that they had to use on the blood, like all that stuff, evoking all that stuff. But instead, you just throw out this random image, and then you're moving on,
Yep.
right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe I was just high and lazy.
You
It's like I
know,
can't stick with this.
this is the first time that a guest has evoked being high for an excuse for bad poems. So
It is the first time, or is
no,
it?
this isn't.
Oh,
This is
no,
Oh,
of course
I
not.
thought I was groundbreaking.
no. We had Corey Ludwig. She was talking about pop brownies as a motivation for some of her poems.
Yeah.
But let's see what may be groundbreaking about this last poem here.
Okay.
Crossing the street.
Yeah, that sounds so quotidian. Crossing the street. I haven't actually even really fully read this poem. Crossing the street. This crow is a promise in your lap like forever. First, the music outside, glossing neighborhood yard coats roots with plausible means to deny that your bones are there. It's important to thank your lucky stars, even in daylight. It's important to kiss your dead self one last time before the whole murder goes. Hmm. Hmm.
Well,
I am feeling like four different concepts that
Hmm.
I can connect. Like, I think I can connect most of them, like, to one other, but it doesn't ever come all four together.
Right. Yeah. And like that second sentence in the first stanza, it starts to feel kind of like language poetry there, where it's like yards, coats, roots with plausible means to like I don't know. I can't get a hold of the syntax in there.
Yeah.
Like there isn't really any syntax in there. It's just kind of words.
is it kind of
Um,
like how you said it was in the first poem, that almost parody of the stylings of that rhythm writer?
Probably, yeah. Probably. For sure, yeah. And I can feel that in sort of the sing-songiness of that last stanza too. I feel like the only thing I like about this, and maybe it's the whole entire poem, is the second stanza.
Yeah.
It's important to thank your lucky stars even in daylight.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
mean,
a
I believe that.
it's a great line. What it has to
Do with anything.
do with the other two
Huh.
parts, Dave, I'm curious as to, like, you said you kind of sense four different directions or four different concepts. I mean, I'm looking at this thing. There's three stanzas to chew on here. I'm getting maybe two concepts, maybe.
Well, yeah, I think I'm looking to separate because I'm trying to like parse it,
Okay.
but I'm not finding. I don't know. I think as if the word for last in any language specifies the listener, which of your oars has folded the water. So it's important to thank your lucky stars even in daylight. I I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I think that works.
One thing that I love what is being attempted here is the crow in the first line and the murder
Yeah.
at the end.
It's like
It's
Yeah.
such a phone in.
yes.
Like I gotta go full circle, so I better just evoke the whole group of crows.
Right.
Right.
But
Dude.
like the whole okay, plausible means to deny that your bones are there, and then to kiss your dead self before the whole murder goes. It's like you're trying to play with this concept of the inevitability of death, kind of,
Sure. Sure,
maybe,
yeah.
and like appreciating life while you have it, right? To thank your
Hmm.
lucky stars even in the daylight. Okay, yeah. Then you get into that, like you said, the word poetry, where it's like, what even
Hmm.
is this but sounds?
Yeah.
Glossy neighborhood yards, coats, roots with
So
plausible
I think I
means.
have the syntax.
Okay.
Okay, so I think it's the music outside, which is glossing neighborhood yards,
Hmm.
coat roots with plausible means to deny that your bones are forever. I
Sure.
think I think that that's what that sentence is like semantically doing. I think.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
I'm so glad you brought these to us because
Yeah.
there's so much work to decode, and yet I'm not even sure there's a code to be found.
There's not. There's not.
Ah, and that again gets back to your kind of philosophy of surrealism, where there needs to be the real that it's like backed against, or that it's doing the juxtaposition to. And
Yeah.
I mean, throwing a
Mhm.
crow in the mix here, it, it's like, again, it's an image you're trying to provoke, or you were trying to provoke, and yet it goes nowhere other than
No.
you need to kiss your dead self before the whole group of crows goes.
Sure.
So
But
Yeah.
are those the lucky stars? Like if you're turning the daylight on its head, so like rather than the white stars of night, the dark stars of day.
Oh wow. Okay. I
the
So
see
the
what you're
crow,
crows
saying.
like
are
the
like,
crows on the tree, like, or on the power
yeah.
lines and stuff. So those,
Okay.
okay,
I don't know. Cut me
I
some
mean,
slack.
but I mean, the
I
crow
mean,
is the promise.
I think that's as erudite as anything anyone can say about this poem, for sure.
I mean, you do invite that parallel with
Hmm.
the it's important line repeated in these two last stanzas.
Yeah.
So it's important to thank your lucky stars. It's important to kiss your dead self
Yeah. And
before the
like,
murder flies away. I mean,
and
it's
so, yeah. And if we're gonna stick with like, if we're gonna stick with the idea that like the crows are like negative stars, like inverse stars, then it's
Hmm.
important to kiss your dead self like before nighttime happens and the murder goes away, and then you can't see those, and then the actual real stars come out. Hmm?
yeah,
There's something there,
there's
but
something there.
I'm not
I feel
smart
like
enough to make sense of it.
This is a math problem now.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We have half the equation, and
Yeah.
oh wow.
If I got it, I think it's x equals negative crows.
Ah,
Sure.
Yes.
because if it goes away, it's imaginary, right? If it's negative crow. No, okay.
The square root of negative crows, yes.
Oh wow. Well, wait. How long have you lived? How long have you lived in your quote unquote old house?
Oh, I've lived in an old house for going on almost 20 years.
Okay, I'm just your bio describes that
Yeah.
across the busy street is an
Hmm.
old tree, and your title here is crossing the street.
Yeah.
So, is there a murder of crows that hang out in the street across the street from you? That
There is currently, but if I'm correct on the timeline of these poems, there would not have been
ah,
at the
darn!
moment.
I
Yeah.
thought we cracked that code there.
Yeah. Unless at some
Just
point I
lie to
revise
us.
these. Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, yes.
Yes, of course.
You are right.
I mean, crossing the street is probably again a metaphor for death.
Sure.
But
What isn't?
what isn't? In all of these poems, I think it's just a return to you will die.
Oh, dude, I am death obsessed.
Memento mori.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't evoked your favorite phrase in a while, Dave. You can.
Well, and I do like adding the crows because I know in some Native American cultures the crow is the psychopomp that carries
Oh,
the
that
soul.
carries you. Yeah.
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 There you go.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have
I think it's genius.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, clearly.
Yep.
You should I know it's not quite your style, but I've heard that there's a journal that actually takes poems that aren't your style. So you could try crossing the street with that said journal.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
remember the name of that journal though. Oh,
The
what could it possibly be?
I mean, I think the really ultimately sad thing here is that at some point these were my style enough that I actually submitted this as a chapbook manuscript.
Sure.
Right.
Like the file that I pulled it from has Ursus Americanus on the name of the file. And so like I'm sorry to those folks that I probably sent this and they had to read it. I hope they only made it like 2 poems in and then were like, get out of here.
They were like, thrilled means carbon copy, and we're done.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hopefully it was quick.
Oh, wow. Well, you have definitely taken us on a journey here. I I wanted to do some sort of like segue by like we need to thank our lucky stars before this show is done, or before you fly away. But
We'll cross that street someday, Aaron.
yeah, I'll get there. But before we let you go, we here at My Bad Poetry, we end each week with the words of a true poet. So, would you be willing to read for us another one of your poems that you are indeed proud of?
Sure, yeah. I can't promise much, but
We
yeah,
believe in you.
Yeah.
thank you. I've been working on sonnets
Ooh, okay.
and I've been making sonnets from lines in my notebooks of stuff that I don't like or won't use, like practice stuff.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's what these are. I'll just read the first one in this manuscript. It's called Field of Vision. The sky floats on a lake, and what I am changes. Everything in this line is made of the same ingredients. Photons wriggle in me and you, then wriggle out. The moon, not as bright as that which it brightens. Frogs in a huge field croak my brother, who, like me, has big hands of glass. Mirrors of the forest. We coated our house in sleep. Went to Mukilteo, where dim rats dressed for business. One man crosses the lake in balloons, another contained in a curse. I am on the opposite shore of my life. Whoever dreamed this up has bad aesthetics. We ought to let the saris fly. Electronically speaking, we all go cold. I hear you boil water and love you. I suspect this is practice for being missed. I don't know if that's any better.
I love it.
That's so much better.
I
Okay,
love
thank
it. And
you.
honestly, that is one that I could easily return to and
Yeah.
pull different things out of. And what makes me so giddy about you picking that poem is that it is almost a pure counter to the three that you gave us. In
Yeah.
that it evoked hands, it evokes I love you, it evokes you talked about field of vision, it's kind of like gravitational lensing. It talked about water and lake. I mean, you had all of these things going on, a contemplation of death, and yet I could follow that through line.
Yeah.
It was all there.
Interesting, because like I read the title and I was like, oh shit, here we go.
No, I think that absolutely nailed like it had an image that held the mind as you kind of danced around it. And it felt very purposeful in that it evoked emotion. I feel confused about how I feel about that. And I want to read it again. Like that was gorgeous.
Thank you.
The frogs croaking, was it brother?
Yeah, yeah.
I that won me over right there. I loved that image and that
Well, thank you.
the shared photon. Yeah. Anyway, well, yeah, this was great. Now, name check your book again.
You don't have to believe in the world with April Gloaming Publishing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then if our any of our listeners have poems there that are not quite your style, but you're still proud of, not your style,
Not
Not
my style.
my
not
dot
my
style.
style, not my dot
Yeah.
style
Yeah.
journal. Nice.
Nice.
Now be authentic though. You know, it's an honor code.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Because I don't know. So
yeah.
you'll have to live with that, you know?
Yeah. That deceit.
Right. They can eat at you for sure.
This has been My Bad Poetry.
Now go write some of your own bad poetry.
Nailed it.
Whoop.
Awesome. Rhyme free doesn't matter.